One of the most memorable times of God working in my life on staff was when I was asked to direct the campus ministry. I had done a lot of different roles in Campus Crusade, and it was in 1990 that Steve Douglas and Bill Bright asked me to give leadership to the campus ministry. And I was an insider. I knew the ministry. I'd been in a variety of leadership roles, and so I entered into that time thinking, okay, God is calling us to do this. Christy and I prayed about it, and so I was excited, I was motivated, I was believing God that there was a lot still ahead of us in the campus ministry. Setting the stage for that next summer in 1991, where we were going to, my first opportunity to address the staff as the national director and talk about the vision for the future, our direction. And did my thing and felt like it went great. People gave me lots of positive feedback and, hey, we're glad you're the national director, all those kinds of things. And it went as good as you could have hoped. It was just fantastic. Sitting on the plane, flying home, Christy turned to me and said, well, how do you really think it went? And I can remember, like it was yesterday, saying to her, I think it went really well, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. And it was the most desperate feeling I've ever had of, I've just done my very best, and it's not enough. The Lord used that time for me as a breaking time, as a time of once again humbling me and saying, you know, even your very best isn't good enough. What I want is your complete dependence, and I will use you like I used you back as a high school kid when you didn't know anything. I'll use you like that if you will trust me like that. So really plunged into the scriptures, and the Lord led us to Matthew 15, and it's a great passage where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. When the Pharisees say to Jesus, why do your disciples not wash their hands at the breaking of bread, as is the tradition of the elders? And Jesus responded and said, why do you forsake the commandments of God for the sake of your traditions? And then on down he says, rightly did Isaiah prophesy of you. This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They teach his doctrine, the precepts of men. And it was that passage that the Lord used like a two-edged sword and a spear and just pierced me to the bone. And I realized, oh Lord, where am I like the Pharisees? Where am I forsaking your commandments for the sake of my own traditions? Where am I teaching his doctrine, the precepts of men? Where are we as a ministry doing that? And it led into a period of about a month of the Lord just convicting me of things in my own life and showing me things in the ministry where, not out of willful disobedience or choice that we had chosen to go a different way, but subtly over time we had become, and I had become, like the Pharisees, where I was more comfortable doing what I thought you were supposed to do. This is how you do the spiritual disciplines. This is how you have a quiet time. This is how you pray, and you just get into a routine, and they had become my own traditional ways of doing it. And I was missing God in the midst of it. And the same was true of us as a ministry in a number of places, in terms of how we were doing evangelism, and we were doing activities, but our heart really wasn't in it. And that over time, we'd become bureaucratic in our approach. And it's one of the dangers of a large, successful organization. Your success starts to choke you out. And in every case, the trend lines were down. You know, our evangelism over the last 10 years had been in a steady decline. The number of students involved had been in a steady decline. The number of people joining staff had been in a decline. Our approach had always been with staff, full-time staff on a campus, and it worked great. But after 40 years of ministry, we were still only on a couple of hundred campuses. We weren't growing. We weren't seeing expansion take place. We weren't doing evangelism at the scope that needed to happen if we really had the heart of God so that everyone could know Christ. And so we asked ourselves, will our traditional method of doing ministry, will it get us to where we want to go? And the answer was no. We've had 40 years of experience to tell us that it's great at what it does, but it won't get us to where we need to be. And so we launched what was called then catalytic ministry, and that's when we saw the explosion happen in terms of the number of campuses we were on. And so we went through a radical structure change in 1991-92, which created a lot of turmoil for a lot of people. Wonderful people, people who were serving faithfully. They just didn't think that would work because they were used to doing ministry a certain way on a staff campus. And so in spite of the pushback and the frustration, and I knew that I needed to continue to press forward. And that was hard because, you know, I'm like most people, I want people to like me. And so to have to be the one to say, no, we're not going to do it that way, or you can't do that job anymore, was extremely painful. And the Lord used that time to pierce my heart and bring me to my knees and say, okay, Lord, I need to come back to a place of humility where I'm not trusting in my own efforts. I'm not trusting in my own activities. I'm not trusting in the habits that I have, the good habits, the spiritual discipline kind of habits, but I'm really trusting in you. And so we saw God do amazing things over the next 5 years. We saw tenfold growth occur. Our evangelism went up from seeing 700,000 exposures in the U.S. In the year 1990 to 5 years later seeing over 7 million exposures to the gospel. We saw the number of students involved in our ministry quadruple in 5 years, from 15,000 to 60,000. We expanded the number of campuses we were on from 200 to right at 1,000 through different strategies. And so God was at work when we were willing to come back and say, we're willing to do it your way, how you command it to be done, the ways you want it to happen, as opposed to our traditional ways. We weren't changing our DNA. We were still committed to win, build, send, but we were taking a fresh look and saying, God, what is it that you want to do? And He did amazing things.